Alright guys, and welcome back. Right, in today's episode I want to start building this ultimate fast road C20XE engine back up so we can fit it in this plastic Audi S5. Now obviously that was a joke, but in all seriousness we are going to start building this engine back up. So we've got the rare parts here, all performance parts pretty much, everything's brand new. This is going to be a really decent build once done. So I'm just going to run through a few things. So we've got 45mm QED direct-to-head throttle bodies with trumpets. We've got a fuel reg. We've got a Gen V fuel rail and adapter. We've got the back plate here. We've got a throttle cable kit. We've got new head bolts. Pretty much every bolt you need, brand new for the engine. Upgraded bottom end bolts, the lot. 8-valve sump plate. And over here we've got a stat oil pressure gauge and a Mark II dash pod. We've got again cam cover bolts, etc. New timing kit. DTA ECU. So we've got ARP rod bolts, we've got vernier pulleys, we've got race cams. These aren't like full race, but they're better than fast road as well. We have Amiga high compression pistons. These are forged pistons, really nicely made. Beautiful bits of kit, big pockets for valves. Lovely. We've got a brand new coil pack, new rod bearings, plug and play C20XE loom, what's going to go with the DTA ECU. It's also got a tune on it, so it should kind of work. Obviously, it's going to need setting up on a rolling road. Got all new gaskets and seals. We've got the Nova rear engine mount, gearbox mount, heat shield, Nova front mount, high pressure fuel pump. Got a really nice lightweight flywheel. This is only 3.5 kilos billet. Brand new LUK clutch, full hose set. And we've obviously got old alternator and starter motor, which is going to be cleaned up. Dipstick tube. Crank, which has been checked, polished up a little bit. Head, which hasn't long been refurbished and skimmed. I will just clean it up a little bit, obviously, but it's all pretty good. And then we've got some old bits down there, which we'll be using some of. So we've got the oil pump, which again needs rebuilding. I've checked it, it looks all good. Ashley manifolds, competition manifold. Equal length, brand new drive shafts and CVs. And then an Ashley exhaust kit. You know, you have to basically make it up as you're going along, but hopefully it's got all the bends we need. So now you've seen all that stuff, I'm going to start building the engine up. The first thing we want to do is, obviously in previous videos I've painted this and cleaned it up, owned the bores. I want to clean it all off now and then put the crank in. Right, so that's all clean now. I've just gone over the whole underside, cleaned it all out best I can, blown it all out with an airline. Really happy with it. One other thing I forgot to mention is we've got these new lightweight steel conrods. Now these are H-beam conrod. They are off eBay. They're very, very lightweight. They come with ARP bolts, and this is going to help make that engine rev and be a lot stronger, hopefully. Right, to fit the crank, need to put the new bearings in. So these are just standard style bearings. They should be fine for this application. You can go for harder race bearings, but I think these will be fine. Just literally slot in. And the centre bearing's got a built-in thrust washer, and this just stops the crank end float essentially. I'm just going to use a hammer shaft just to tap that home. Perfect. Now we're just going to use some assembly lube just to lubricate these up. Right. Now we can slip the crankshaft in. So this is an early C20XE crankshaft, and these little bits here are much thinner. It's about 2 kilos lighter, and these are preferred over a lot of engine builders just because they're a bit lighter, so they rev a bit better. Now these journals have been polished using 600 Abranet cloth, and I've just cleaned it all up, just making sure there's no excess grime, etc. But it all looks pretty clean. I can apply a bit more lube. Right, I'm going to start putting these crank caps on. So I'll just clean this up, as you can see. Now this is the end one with the rear main crank seal. So down here needs some silicone or some kind of adhesive. I use the Victorine stuff, it's really good. You literally just want to apply a bit down there, like so. Same on that side. Put plenty in, don't worry about it. It'll squirt out what it doesn't want. If you don't do this properly, it will leak around the end, so we don't want that. Like so. I've already put some assembly lube on the top of this. Can only go one way. Carefully slide it down. And I'm just going to loosely put these two new bolts in. Now these aren't stretch bolts, they're actually high tensile steel bolts, which are meant to be better, probably a bit stronger, better for racing I believe, better for high revving engines, I'm not sure. That's the part number, and they suggest putting them in dry or lubed. If it's dry, 55 foot-pounds, lubed 41. So I'm obviously not going to torque them down until the rest of them in, but just so you get the idea. Right, so that's number 5. This one is number 4, which is the next one along. And it wants to go with the little tab on the same side as the other one, which is just there. Hopefully you can see that. So it should read 1, 2, 3, 4, correct way round, not that way round. Hope that makes sense. Again, I put new bolts in. Again, number 3's got the thrust bearing on it. And again, I'm just going to knock it in with a hammer shaft, because these ones are just a little bit tighter until it's flush, like so. And there we go. Number 2 and number 1. Simple as that. Right, now they're all in, finger tight, I'm going to torque them up. So 55 foot-pounds. Start with centre ones. Beautiful. Right, just check them all. Beautiful, and look at that, effortless. Happy with that. Right, so I've just quickly built up this rod and piston assembly. Now remember, this is a high strength steel conrod, and it's a forged Amiga high compression piston with ARP rod bolts. So I'm just curious how much it weighs compared to the original. Now that's the original item. These again are forged pistons because it's an early C20XE, so these are the desirable ones anyway. But let's just have a look. So put it on the scales. So that weighs 1,055 grams. So just over a kilo. That's the new rod, which is much stronger. Old one, which I can tell is heavier straight away, is 1,180 grams, that is, sorry. So that is 130 grams lighter than that. So if you think that times 4, what's that, 100, 260, 520 grams. So that's half a kilo saved on the bottom end straight away. We've got obviously another 3.5 kilos saved on the flywheel. That means it's going to rotate much better. Plus we're going to have a lightweight crank pulley. Yeah, this is going to be a decent engine. I'm looking forward to seeing it rev. So now this is built up, I'm going to do the rest. I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Right, so these use ARP 2000 rod bolts. Now these aren't metric, they're actually imperial. It's an American company after all. So these need to be torqued up to 26 foot-pounds, and you need to use the ARP lube under the heads and on the threads. So first off, I'm just going to take the bolts out. As you can see, really nice quality. And then the caps are actually held on with dowels, so they don't just fall off. You have to give them a bit of a wiggle. Which is a good thing, I guess. Like so, and there's the dowels. Really nice machining, really impressed with them. Yeah, and they're really light considering the steel. Now, traditionally, the rod should have a hole through it with an oil feed to the top end. This doesn't work like that. There's a hole here, so I'm assuming it just gets oil, like a splash feed, essentially. I'm not really sure. But because of that, it doesn't really matter which order these go in. But I have been doing it this way, because that's how they should be on the original Vauxhall. So, like so, hole there, that's where the oil feed would normally be. Then on the rod cap, like so. And obviously before I fit these, I'll just put some lube on them. They go back together like so. They should be on the same side. Hopefully you can see like the little notches. And I'll just loosely put these back in so we don't lose them. Beautiful. Right, so next up is piston. This is a mega high comp piston, as I've previously said. It's got a big valve cut out. It's on the bigger side are for the inlets. As you can see, they just cut out the side here because inlets always have bigger valves. I've just pulled the gudgeon pin out a little bit. So now we can put a little bit of lube on it. And then slide this through. Now I want everything to match. So we're going to do it like that. Slides through really nicely. Now this is the awkward bit, putting the little clips in. These are little circlips, but they're not traditional circlips with the holes in where you put the pliers in. So you basically just have to kind of prise them in. It's a little bit awkward if I'm honest. But you do get there. Like so. And then once it's in, I just twist the clip round. You can see that with the screwdriver just to make sure it's seated properly, which it is. And then I just make sure the ends are out the way of the holes, which hopefully you can see. Turn it around to the other side. And there we go. So next job's piston rings. So basically do the oil, scrape a bit at the bottom, then the middle ring, then the top ring. So the rings do have an order. This is a little chart. So the top one basically has a little cutout which goes in. This is the edge of the piston ring. The second one has got a little cutout which goes down. And then the bottom ones can kind of go in any order. So we're going to start with the bottom ones. This is the oil scraper. Just carefully wind it on. Lower ring, again, carefully wind it on. This is kind of fiddly trying to do it on camera, if I'm honest. And then this goes on top. So they do just say, just try and keep the rings 120 degrees out from each other. So you'll have one there, one there, one there, if that makes sense. Just stops, well, helps eliminate some of the blow by. Right, so the next is the second ring. As you can see from the diagram, that should have the little cutout facing down. You're probably not going to see this because it's too small, but this ring has that. It's currently facing down, so we're going to slide that on. Like so. And then the top one, right, you can probably just see the top ring just says top, which means that bit has to point upwards. So again, we want to get it about 120 out. So carefully wind it on. like so. And that is one piston and conrod built up. 2 more to go. Right, so I've got all 4 conrods and pistons built up. Next job's to start putting them in. So I'm going to get the spring compressor out now, start sliding them in. Now the bores have been spotlessly cleaned. I've cleaned them again, cleaned them again. So yeah, there's no crap in here now, really happy. So I'm going to put a little bit of assembly lube on these and then just slide them in with the spring compressor. Right, as I said earlier, the bigger cutouts are for the inlet valves. Inlet on these engines are at the back. It doesn't actually have an arrow to point forward like a lot of these pistons do. So I'm just kind of blagging it, but like I say, I know the inlet valves are bigger, so it must go that way. So I'm just going to give it plenty of lube. And I can slide over the compressor like so, wind it on. And then slide it in. And that is that. Right, so I've lubed the crank up. Now the cap can go on. And I'm just going to put some ARP fastener assembly lubricant on the bolts, like so. I'm going to put loads on, just a bit, and on the head. And then I need torquing to 26 foot-pounds, which is about 35 newton meters. This torque range is probably slightly overkill, however, it does the job. There we go. Both tight. And that rotates absolutely lovely. Right, let's do the rest. Right, now the conrods and pistons are all in and torqued. I'm going to fit the oil pump. Now I've split this, cleaned it, checked it over. It's got the stainless steel relief valve in it, which is much better than a plastic type, and the gears look in good condition. It's had a new seal, so yeah, it's pretty good to go. So I'm just going to stick it back on. Now I didn't film it because I've done this before. If you look at my previous videos, you'll know I've stripped one before, and I show you how to do it. So let's stick this back on. So this has all been cleaned back, and I'm using a brand new steel gasket. Just put plenty of lube on the seal. And in it goes. And finally the little insert. Beautiful. And the next job, I'm going to remove this oil filter sandwich plate adapter. We're not using that anymore. And once again, we're going to fit the oil cooler delete union. These are from Alex Darcy. They fit really nicely. So literally just screw this straight in, and then the oil filter will just screw straight to this and do away with the original sandwich plate. Just like so. Lube up the new oil filter. This is a nice genuine Bosch one. It's a really good quality. And then that wants to be hand tightened. Right, so next job, we're going to use the late style Calibra 2 litre 8 valve rubber gasket with a built-in baffle plate. Now this is loads better because the original gasket is a double cork gasket with the baffle plate that goes in between. They're renowned for leaking, they're not very good. This is much better. So we're going to clean this up a little bit more, put the baffle plate on, then put the oil pickup pipe on, and then put the sump on. And this is the very item. It fit something like that. Now it's actually slightly bent from transportation, but I think it'll be okay. Yeah, something along the lines of that. So we're going to use a bit of Victor Ryan seal. This is really good stuff, as I keep telling everybody. Really recommend. We're going to put a smear on both sides just to help it on its way. Right, next job, oil pickup. Boom. And finally, the sump. Right, now that's on loosely, I'm just going to torque them all up. Now we're torquing them to 14 Newton meters, which is quite low. The reason I'm torquing them is if you over tighten it, you're going to squish the gasket, then it's going to leak. Under tighten it, it's going to leak as well. So I want it to be bang on, so I'm going to torque it properly. Start from the centre and work my way out. And there we go, guys. That is the bottom end built up. So if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and stay tuned for more. Next week, we're going to continue building this ultimate fast road spec C20XE. See you later. Bye-bye.